Hello folks, we're going to quickly go over a tutorial on how to complete the design portion for assignment 2. So as you know, my one big recommendation for every assignment is always take a very close look at the rubric because this is how I'm going to be marking you on your assignment. So above in the rubric it's going to give more details, but I just want to scroll and you should go through all these details. But I want to do a high overview of what's going to be required. So you're making sure that you have your folder structure created, and I'll give you a quick demo on how to do that. You're then going to have your one sheet, which we went over last week, as well as the design composition, which we went over last week, followed by making sure that your naming convention is proper and making sure that the submission is fully sent through. So I'm going to first show you your setup. So what I did for mine was I actually duplicated the assignment 1 folder to make sure that I had all the folders I'm going to need. And then inside of my PSDs folder, that's where I've added that generic one sheet in the assignment 2 template. And remember, you've been provided those inside of your assignment 2 submission folder. If you go in there, you can download these files. Next, if we head over, we have to have our one sheet set up and our design composition. That's what I'm going to walk you through in this short video. So if I load these two files up in Photoshop, I will have this. You were given a generic one, but what you have to do for your assignment is actually put all of the correct colors that you're going to be using, fonts you're going to be using, and the logo, which is pretty simple. So to get the logo that I've added in here, all I did was went to Google and I searched for Taylor Swift logo. I looked on her website as well just to make sure that I was getting the correct one. It's always helpful if you can get a PNG file, because if you grab the PNG file, it's going to be transparent in the background. And that is why you're seeing transparency around here. So I went to her website just to make sure I was getting the current logo she's using right now. And I replaced it. If we look in our folders that we have here, I deleted the old logo and added this one in place. Next, I went to her website and looked around at the colors being used on there. You can do a screen capture on your computer and then bring the file into Photoshop and use the color dropper to get the specific colors that are put in here. And that's what I did. So I used the primary colors of these. So there's white, gray, and a beige. And then this brownish color were colors that I've seen regularly used on her site. So in the merch, you're going to see this brown colors used. And on the home page and here, you're going to see that these colors are used. And they're pretty consistent throughout her website. So as you do that though and use the color selector, you're going to see that you're given the actual hex value to use. So make sure you replace the hex values in here. And that's just by using the type tool, selecting the text, and typing it in. And then to get this block to change colors, all you do is if you use the select tool up here, click on it, you're going to be brought over to the swatch. If you double click, go to color overlay, and double click on the square, you can then paste in that hex value and make it so the hex value changes using the color overlay feature. That's a pretty quick and easy way to go about doing it. And finally, the next step that you're going to do is you are going to update the fonts that are listed here. Now I know some people don't have a heavy design background, and that's perfectly fine. If you're looking for combinations of fonts to use, one tool I suggest to use to make this easier for this assignment for you is using Google Fonts, because it's going to allow us to easily add fonts into our website afterwards to match. And one site that I usually share with students, and I'll put this link inside of the page that you're going to view this video on, is you can usually find font combinations that are selected by graphic designers. So scrolling through here, I found one that I really liked that I thought resembled the Taylor Swift brand, and that's using the Railway Light and the Open Sans Regular fonts. So you'll see in here, there's an option to download the font parent. That'll install it on your computer, and you'd want to do that and then change it in Photoshop. And then the second option is it will give you the code to use that we're going to be using on the assignment later when we get to the coding portion. So if I just head back over to Photoshop, after I downloaded the fonts, all I did was I selected the text, wrote the new font name inside, and then selected it from the drop-down here. And voila, it is going to be that simple to change your fonts over. Next, you've been given this template as well. And this is where you're going to be putting your design in that you would like to use for your either artist or event website. So it's going to be pretty simple as we go through this. If I click over here on my logo, remember we have our folder structure all set up here. So this is what's appearing in the top with the logo and the text. And we have our bottom boxes in here as well, followed by our backgrounds. So I'm going to show you some of the basics options to be doing in here. I'm going to want you to go a little bit more beyond what I'm showing here in regard to adding in more design elements, such as the background effect that you're going to want in here, making sure the color is all correct. But because you've been given this template, it makes it pretty easy to go through this process. So the first thing I would do is bringing up my assignment 2 folder. In my raw images, I do have my logo file here. So I'm just going to drag that over onto the page. And I'm going to scale that down. Remember, on the newer version of Photoshop, you're not going to end up using the shift key when you hold it down, because that'll skew it. On the newer version of Photoshop, you just drag from the corners and it automatically does that for you. And then I'll work on centering that in. I have to do that part after just to make sure it's fully centered. The next part I'm going to do is add a bit of text in here. And for that, I think I'm actually going to go to the Taylor Swift website. I might make it just as simple as this actually. I'm just going to grab this text here and I am going to paste it over in here. And you may remember that we've selected the fonts that we want to use. So I'm going to go back here for my main heading. I'm going to use Railway semi-bold. So I'm just going to select this text, click up here in the text box, and we're going to look up Railway semi-bold. I'm going to center this. I'm just going to bump the font size up. I'm using the arrow key on my keyboard just so I can see it quickly. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that because I want it to be competing with the logo. I want this to stand out on the page. Might go a little bit smaller though still actually. So I think they're too similar in size and I want that a little smaller. Just gonna click in here. Select my text and bump it down. 43 might be good, but I actually might shrink this in a little bit more too, actually. Let's try 38 for now. And remember, we'd go back to our one sheet, we'd be looking at the colors here because you're going to want to update these colors throughout too. So one thing I might do right now is just change. Just going to grab my hex values here. Go back over here. Have my background rectangle. If I double click in there, I can use a color overlay. Just going to change this. I have this color gray. I'm just going to grab that as well. And that's what I'm going to change this color here to. inside of here, we have our titles. I'm just gonna use Railway Regular for our titles. So Railway, I think medium is what we'll use here. I'm just gonna update all my titles. Perfect. Just taking a quick look through the site to see if there's anything easy I can grab on here. All right, so I am going to take a look through here and let's update some text in here. So this will be about Taylor. This will be, usually we do an event, so obviously that's a little bit different during the pandemic, but I'll still add that in for now. And last but not least, photo gallery. So just as an example here, I'm going to grab a bit of text. We probably won't use all that. I'm just gonna add it in here. Oh, looks like I clicked in wrong. So I just hit Command Z to backspace that out. And I'm going to paste that text in. So right now, it is using Myriad Pro. I don't want that. I want Open Sans, which is the other font I'm using, Open Sans Regular. So select all that text, type in Open Sans Regular, and voila, it's changed over. And that actually worked out pretty well. When you do yours, just make sure, you might want to make sure that the line height is set this way. It should be good though. We're getting a little tight, but I think we'll be good. Next for events, I'll just add a few inside of here. So you'll say, just as an example, October 31st, 2020, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I would make this text a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna pump this size up a little bit. Maybe make that an 18. So Command plus to zoom in a little bit on this. Let's change this. We're gonna bump this up to 20. And we'll put this at 16. And I'm just gonna go over to my generic one page, take a look at this color. Let's see how that color works. It might be too similar, but we'll try it out and see how it goes. Just to change the font heading there for the date. No, I don't like the color combination of that. So what I'm going to do for the time being, this is something you're going to play around with while you're doing colors as well. For the time being, I'm just going to make this black. Makes it pop it a little bit more on the screen. Come to think of it, we're going to change this order around actually. So right now I have it set to be the location, but really the location should probably be up here in the date a little smaller beneath. So Toronto, Ontario, Canada, because that's the information people are going to want to see. And we're going to change the date to October 31st, 2020. Should make my life easier. I'm just going to do 27th for this, because we're going to copy this out and we're going to add a few more in. I'm going to enter twice, enter twice, enter twice, and we'll do 2 nights in Toronto. We will do a night in Ottawa on the 29th, and we'll do a night in Montreal. All right, so we have our simplistic design in here, and the last part we're going to do is we are going to add in some photos. So I still have my raw photos from before. Remember, you're gonna have to grab some different ones for this assignment. I'm just gonna use these as an example, and I'm gonna bring them into Photoshop. I'm going to crop these a lot smaller. I'm just going to double check the size I want to use for here. I think it ends up being 80. I think 80 by 80 ended up working, but let me double check. I'm going to view, turn on my extras, which will give me some guides in here. I go view and rulers. I'm just going to bring my ruler down in here so that I can easily see if I zoom in. Yeah, 80 by 80 is what this is. As you can see, it starts on the 0, it goes over to the 80. So 80 by 80. Perfect. I know view. I'm going to turn off my extras just for the time being. And what we're going to do next is, now that we've opened all these photos, we're just going to crop it. And we're going to set it so that it goes to 80 pixels by 80 pixels. Just hitting enter here to actually crop it. Because I have the crop tool already selected and 80 by 80, you'll see that it just goes around the photos because they're open. I hit enter, and I'm just clicking on the tab with the next photo on it. So that is added in the photos for me. Next, I'm just going to drag them off the screen. It's going to give me them a little bit smaller in here so I can just easily drag them in over to here. So I'm actually going to turn those guides back on. I'm going to show extras. Oh. Sorry, it's because I wasn't in this one. I'm going to hit escape just so that it does not crop the photo. View extras just so I can easily see those guides. And then I can easily scroll this down a little bit and drop these into the document just by dragging. So if I click, just click and drag, and click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. Sorry, I should have had 3 more, but we'll do this just for the sake of this video so you understand how to do it and can continue on with doing the work yourselves afterwards. All right, so I have all the photos. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. Oh, I got an effect added onto this one. zoom out a little bit. Use the zoom tool. Bring that back in for a second. Just easily drag them up so they line up nicely inside. Just going to collect on that text and delete it out as well because we no longer need that text there. Looks like I may have added in that photo so that it appeared beneath. Yeah, so you'll see that it ended up going in the bottom layer. I'm just dragging that up so it's a little higher here and turning back on that right box. That was a mistake I made on mine when I dragged it in. I didn't put it above here. So I'm just gonna get that put in the box and voila. We have our 80 by 80 photos. If I zoom out, and you can play around with this. You just want to make sure that it does fit inside. So I would stick to the 80 by 80 and do 3 rows of 3. It's going to make your lives a lot easier. The next stage you're going to be doing is adding in background photo, just making sure the color scheme is all working. Again, this was just a very quick demo to show you through the kind of the steps to do to get this done, but I want to see your Photoshop skills as well. So I have to find that balance of doing the whole assignment versus seeing what you're able to do as well. So I'm excited to see your design, and in the next video, what we are going to do is cover taking this design and turning it into the code that's required. So thank you all, and I look forward to talking to you during the design or the development portion.